maintain in the world to fix it because it's inside you, it's your soul. So I think that's the only problem of finding happiness. You can't, when it's a problem, you have to fix yourself.
Because I'm trying to think about why it is, if we can get to the root of this thing, and it's a hard place to get, but it's the bottom of an important issue, though. Why is it about stuff that makes us happy? In other words, if I'm thinking back to when we started this whole thing, somebody was talking about getting like the new phone every year. So what is it about that thing that makes us happy?
Isn't it knowing that like nobody else has it and that you do?
Maybe what?
Like knowing that you have it and nobody else does.
Oh,
like,
man.
Competition.
I've got it. You don't. You suck. So then we're taking joy in other people's lack of having stuff.
Sadly, that's true for a lot of people.
Wow. Do you guys see the holes in this stuff? Do you guys see the problems in these kinds of things? Why do we take joy in other people's suffering?
Makes us feel better. Powerful.
But it makes us feel better. Why? That's the important thing. Yeah.
I think it makes us feel better about ourselves because everything.
But I stress this point because it's a really important human problem. Because it's going to have happiness. Happiness is a really significant problem. It's a really significant issue. I mean, if you think about it, we focus so much of our life on happiness, and if we ask people what they want out of life, they'll say, oh, I just want to be happy. If I ask your parents when you were born, if I even ask them now, I imagine most of them would probably still give the same answer. What do you want for your child as they grow older? I want them to be happy. I just want them to be happy. Well, if we have so much of our effort on being happy, how come so few people are? Maybe it's because we don't understand what it is. It's the glick that we've talked about. And that's because we haven't taken the time to figure out what it is. And if we don't know what it is, then we don't even know how to start looking for it. And then if we do start looking for it, we don't even know when we have found it, because we don't know what the thing is. So when you're with your friends and you feel happy, do you ever stop and look at the people who aren't with their friends and go, they don't have friends, they're not happy like me, and go back to your happiness? No. So maybe there is some that should tell us that maybe the idea of having things that other people don't have isn't the code for happiness. In other words, maybe that is not it. Maybe there's something else that, in fact, when you're with your friends and you're feeling happy, everything else. Think about the things in your life that are no longer in your mind. That makes sense. In other words, think about the things that you're not missing. It would be difficult to do that because living life or being happy is so time-consuming. It's so mentally consuming that you don't have time for anything else when you're in that moment of that thing. I mean, get on a roller coaster and start thinking about your taxes. You know, it's a great way to drag it down, but it's also probably a difficult thing to do. When you're with your friends, start thinking about the things that make you miserable. If you really focus your mind on it, you can do it. You can do that, of course. But my God, why would you want to? You know, yeah.
Do you think happiness runs out of so far?
I think that what we think of as happiness does. What we think of as happiness does. In other words, what I would suggest to you perhaps is that have any of you guys ever seen my truck?
No.
If you go out to the parking lot and you look at the teacher cars, look around the parking lot and go, what car would a philosopher drive?
I asked myself that yesterday.
Is that?
I asked myself.
Exactly. What kind of car would Diogenes drive? Diogenes who told Alexander to get the fuck out of his sunlight. What would he drive? I drive MrTruck. I've had MrTruck since 2000. I've had MrTruck a long time. Yes, MrTruck is the only material possession that I own that if I lost him, I'd be very unhappy. It would actually bother me. I hope you understand the point of this. Simplicity. 3 rules of life. Simplify, simplify, simplify. what catches us up in our minds is the complexities that we build into our lives. People say, well, man, getting older sucks. Why? Because you got to pay bills. Dude, the only people who pay bills are people. The only people who care about money are people who pay their bills. If you don't pay your bills, why do you care about money? And if you don't have bills, how much less do you care about money? Money is a means, it's a resource. And again, people who say money doesn't matter, they either have a lot of it or they have none of it. There's nothing in between there. People who are in between there, they know that money does matter to a degree. Why? Well, even when we say, I heard someone say earlier, you got to pay the mortgage. Yeah, but the mortgage on what? How big is your house? Are you buying your house because it's an investment, or are you buying your house because you need a place to live? So maybe that's not the thing. You know, like I said, in MrTruck, I love MrTruck. I walk out in the morning, I see Mr. What's up, MrTruck? MrTruck, he's been around. You know, he's got a little dent on the side of him. That comes from somebody backing into me, and I paid a homeless guy to fix it. Long story. Homeless people are not good at fixing body damage, but they need to eat too. So, and they need dignity. So you throw them a few bucks so they can feel like they've earned something in their lives. It's not a bad thing for them to do. I don't have a heart. Shut up. And then he's got his bumper's a little bit off in the back. I'm not quite sure why. I think it's from years of jumping on top of it for fun. But he's awesome. I wake up. I turn him on. He's excited to go because he's MrTruck, man. I've known this guy almost my whole life. I know this guy a long time. And then, God, 6 or 7 years ago now, I guess, there used to be a Target down here. You guys remember? And I was down there one time, and I was walking up to MrTruck, and there was this a woman putting stuff into her trunk, and this little kid, this old, whatever that is, and he has the shopping cart, and his mom's not paying attention, so he decides he wants to go put the shopping cart back. So as he's trying to put the shopping cart back, bang, right into the side of MrTruck. And just as I'm walking up to it, so his mom turns horrified because her son just slammed a shopping cart into a car because she wasn't paying attention, and the person whose car she slammed, she couldn't pretend it didn't happen. I was standing like from here to the camera from it, and she turns and she goes, "Oh my God, I am so sorry." And she turns and starts yelling at me. I go, "Hey, he was trying to do something nice." You know, the little boy was trying to help mommy, and he didn't realize the implications of it, and he slammed into a car. You want to slam the kid for doing something nice? How do you think that's going to turn out in his life? If you yell at him, well, I'm not yelling at him because he did something nice. I'm yelling at him because he took a risk and made a mistake and screwed up. You want to train him not to take risks for being nice? Yeah, but it's your car. It's MrTruck. You don't think MrTruck's okay with that? I'm okay. Why? Because the kindness that you could show that kid and the lesson that you could maybe extend to that kid is far more important than whatever scratch I got on the car. Or, but that's my stuff. Now I'm angry, now the woman's angry, now the kid feels terrible, and there's all this horrible negative energy around a kid trying to do something sweet for his mom. Why? Because we get so wrapped up in stuff. Stuff isn't bad. It's the addiction to stuff that's bad. You're supposed to, what do I need? A glass of red wine every night is supposed to be good for your heart? Yeah, I've heard this. I imagine 2 bottles of red wine before bed, not so good for your liver though. So maybe it's how we view these kinds of things. So many things in life are good, positive. We take them, we misuse them, and we corrupt them. Now largely, it has to do with how we feel about ourselves. If you want stuff that other people don't have and you want them to know they don't have it, maybe there's something wrong with how you view yourself. My value and worth as a human being is measured by the stuff I have. What does that mean about the people who don't have? What's your view about them then? Even if it's unspoken, even if it's not explicit, even if it's implicit, what are you implying about people who don't have? They're lesser than me. If I'm better because I have stuff, that means other people are less better because they don't have stuff. Maybe that's the source of some of our problems in life, that we view people this way. I'm better than you, you're better than me, so I'm unhappy because you're better than me, but I feel happy because I'm better than you. The old saying, what is it? That shit floats downstream. You know, we like to take a dump on the people below us, and then we feel like the people above us are taking a dump on us. The truth of the matter is they probably don't even know we exist because they're too busy doing stuff to have the things that we think are going to make us happy. But there's a reason that mental illness, I shouldn't say that. I guess I could say mental illness, because it's not really illness. Neuroses, depression, anxiety, these kinds of stress disorders, there's a reason that those are diseases of the wealthy. I'll say it again. Stress, depression, anxiety, these are generally diseases of the wealthy. Poor people don't usually have these kinds of problems. And we could say, well, just because they don't get diagnosed. Yeah, but that's not true. We like to say that because it sounds good. It sounds like an easy solution, but it actually turns out to not be true when we account for that in our data analysis. It's because people who have stuff feel a need to protect the stuff that they have. And so to protect the stuff that they have, they get anxious, they get depressed, they start doing things, immoral things, that most of us think like we would never do. But we're capable of a hell of a lot. Like I've asked that question before. Do you think you could have been a concentration camp guard? Or do you think that somehow, some way, you're one of those very incredibly rare exceptions of people who would have stood up against a regime like that? I mean, hell, if there's one thing we've learned here in the past year, I think I know who would have pointed to the attic. I think I know who would have stood in those guard towers and said, it's the new normal, I'm just doing my job. But this only works if we examine ourselves. What is it about having stuff that makes me happy? But if having stuff makes you happy, that shouldn't make you feel bad. I'm not saying that at all. So whatever makes you happy makes you happy. I would just caution us that if the things that make us happy are the things that cause us to think less of other people, then maybe we're not really so happy. Maybe we're just trying to cover up our own insecurities, make ourselves feel better because we really do feel like trash about ourselves. And maybe that's the thing that you can fix, because if you can feel good about yourself, well, you could be Diogenes. You could lay in the street. And when the wealthiest man in the world asks you, what one thing can I bless you with? All you could say to them is, you could get out of my sunlight. Because there's nothing else that they want. What could you have taken from Diogenes at that moment? His sunlight. What could you have taken from Alexander? His entire empire. His whole life was consumed with having to be anxious and worried if the people around him were going to stab him in the back, quite literally with the case of Caesar. Or if people were going to rebel and take away his empire, if things were going to fail, how is history going to remember me? His mind was constantly consumed with all of those things. Was he really free? He may have been powerful, he may have been wealthy, but was he free? And I guess that's the thing that we have to ask ourselves all the time. Do I want to be free? Or do I want to be held captive by these things? And that's a real call, by the way. I don't mean that as a metaphor. And whatever choice you make in your own life is fine. It's the choice that you make for your life. Just make sure that the choice you make is really the choice that you're making for yourself. And not because you're looking for social approval, unless, of course, social approval is the thing that makes you happy. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But we should be able to examine ourselves. Look at the thing, and I guess this is the real important point. We should be able, and I'll leave you with this. We should be able to look at ourselves and realize that, and honestly deal with the things that make us happy. You know what? It makes me happy to know that I have stuff that other people don't have, because it makes me feel better than them. I don't want to say that about myself. Well, then maybe you shouldn't feel that way. No, I'm not just saying you shouldn't feel that way. Sorry, maybe you shouldn't think that way. In other words, if you can say it proudly and happily, then maybe you're okay. Maybe there's nothing wrong with it. But if there's something that irks at your conscience and you feel the need to try to explain it away in some other way, then maybe that's an issue. You guys know Mr. Garcia in the library? Great guy, right? Sometimes I have to go in there sometimes and go, I'm feeling really terrible about my life, Michael. Can you tell me about yours? And he'll tell me about his life, and I'll go, thank you, I feel so much better. I appreciate it. He's funny like that. I just go in there and he plays along with it. Because he'll always complain about his life. He actually has a really good life. He's a really good dude. I like him a lot. He's a really good dude. But it's a joke between him and I. Like, I'll take him some coffee, and I'll say, so tell me about your life. And he'll say, well, I'm miserable and alone right now. Thank you so much, I feel better. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. He's not really, but he'll just say stuff like that. But imagine if you really do take joy in stuff like that. Maybe that would say something absolutely horrible about me as a person. And maybe I would try to cover it up and explain it away in some other way. And if that's the case, then maybe we're destined to be unhappy. So maybe that's the decision we have to make. If we want to pursue happiness, or let it ensue by getting rid of the stuff that's standing as a barrier between it and us. Maybe we should try to get rid of maybe we should try to break down those barriers of expectation. I'm not supposed to do this, I'm not supposed to want this. Maybe we should get rid of those things because those are the things that make us feel terrible. And instead examine ourselves. And if in our own examination we say, I shouldn't want that, I shouldn't do this, fine. But let it be from yourself, your reason. I think most of us will come to the same conclusions anyway. We don't need to be forced into thinking certain things. It was quite a tour of 40 minutes, huh?